All right, so let me just go back to that. My name is Marco Franchina. I'm a photographer. I've been photographing since the ripe age of 22 years old. I'll go into my introduction right now in terms of the beginning as I labeled it here. I'm going to read it to you guys. I know you guys can read a lot better than I can. I was born in Pisa, Italy. At the age of 3, I came to Los Angeles, California. After high school, I picked up a couple of jobs here and there for about a year or so, but I was not really ambitious. I did go to community college for a semester and rolled my eyes all through it. During this time, I was visiting my cousin's home and noticed a camera on his shelf. It was a Minolta with a 50 mil lens. I've never taken any photos seriously, but I asked if I could use it, and he just gave it to me. I was always I was always very interested in fashion. My mom was a fashion designer, and that might have rubbed off a little. I had a good friend of mine at the time who was a top model at a big modeling agency. I did a test shoot with him and sent it off to the agency, and the response was great. I continued testing models and came up with a nice test book to show the magazines. There was no internet, no website, no Instagram at the time. So magazines were the happening thing for photographers to show off their work. At this time, I was looking at a lot of fashion magazines, mostly from Italy. There were a couple of photographers' work I really was inspired by. One of the photographers was an Israeli photographer named Avi Meroz. Please ask me about Avi in Q&A. I thought I needed to put that in there. And the other were Italian photographers Fabrizio, Ferri, and Giovanni Castel. I knew I wanted to be a fashion photographer, so I started saving money. I went to New York City. I first went to New York City in 1981. I had a friend at the time living in Los Angeles, and he had a family in Kew Gardens, Queens, New York. He said the best he could do for me was to let me share a room with one of his cousins. I would have slept on the streets if I needed to. I had to learn about photography, and New York City would be the place. I worked in a darkroom, assisted for various photographers, taking the F train back and forth from Kew Gardens to New York City every day. I was exhausted, but nothing was going to stop me. The real destination, however, was Milan, Italy. Italy is one of the famous hottest capitals. One good thing was I knew the language, although barely. I started to test with models by doing models by doing photos nonstop to build my portfolio for European magazines. Within 2 years going back and forth from Los Angeles to Milan, I finally started to photograph for the biggest fashion magazines. Since the age of 23, I've lived in Milan, Italy, Madrid, Spain, Sydney, Australia, and New York City. I've been published in fashion, celebrity, and lifestyle magazines all over the world. All right. Can you see this, you guys, or is
It's
the
perfect.
Okay. So I don't know. I'm trying to get the bar out of. Oh, here it is. Minima. Goodbye. Okay. So this is a self-portrait, obviously, of me in Milan, Italy, in a elevator, and I was holding a Nikon F camera, if I remember right. It had a motor drive. It was just a work camera and could kill anybody with it, probably as a weapon. I just got into the magazines, shooting for the fashion magazines here. I think I was in about 6 months into it. And it's probably my first self-portrait I ever did in starting as a photographer. I had a lot of hair at that time too, which was kind of sad now. We'll go to the next one. Oops. Okay. So this is the first publication magazines I have. I finally made it in Italy to work with a very prestigious men's Italian magazine called Linea Uomo. It took me a little bit of time to get into that magazine and others, but this was my first publication. And I worked for the magazine for 2 years. What I loved about this magazine was that they pretty much they're very loose out there. They kind of just give you the clothes, a driver for a van, and a stylist. I had no assistant at the time. I shot all tri-X, and it was pretty fun. It was just fun, and I partied with all the models. We had a great time, and it was just the time was the '80s, and everyone was just having a really fun time with it. I loved the style of it. Was very reportage, sort of on the streets. My prior, I was assisting a photographer named Avi Meroz that I was talking to you about, and his style was very, I kind of grabbed of what he was doing. I really liked his stuff off the streets. He worked for the like the biggest magazines out there, Vogue, Amica, and I'll tell you a quick story about that and him, and that's why I brought that up. Avi Meroz is pretty much got me into the magazines in Milan. I was working different jobs in LA, like I was telling you earlier. And one particular job I was working at was at my cousin's motorcycle shop on Highland, and it was called Hollywood Kawasaki Yamaha, if I remember right. And I was just pushing bikes in the morning and doing a bunch of stuff, to just to save money to get out and go to New York and start becoming a photographer. And I studied a lot of photographers, like I had said earlier, Giovanni Castelli, Fabrizio Ferri, Avi Meroz, and quite a few others in the magazines. And one in particular was Avi, who I really liked his work. One day, I was moving a bike, and this man comes up to me, and he asked me if I was the owner of the motorcycle shop. I'm 22 years old. I'm like, no, but I know the owner. Did you need any help? And he goes, I'd like to use one of these bikes for a fashion spread, a motorcycle for a fashion spread to, so we can, shoot it with one of the models. So he had his crew with him in his van and all that. And I looked at him and I said, so what's your name? He goes, Avi Meroz. I almost like fell on my back. Now here's a guy, in fact, I think I had a magazine in the shop there, that one of the magazines he had his work in. So here's a guy who came in from Europe out of nowhere in LA, in a motorcycle shop, who I've been studying and wanting to, meet eventually. Here he is coming up to me, ask me if I can, if he can use one of the motorcycles. So I don't know what that's all about, but I feel that something was happening there. And when that had happened, he had said to me, if you come to Italy, I'll help you out a little bit. I'll get you on your feet. You can help me assist if you want. I'll use you as a runner. And a runner is a film guy who runs film back and forth to the labs. And I was just like thrilled. And I knew I was on a mission at that point. So he left, I got his number and all that. And then a year and a half later, I see him, and we'll talk about that. So here is, I don't know if I'm in the right, yeah, okay. So this is River Phoenix. River Phoenix, most of you might know him, maybe some of you don't. He was a young kid actor, just going places and sort of kind of like a James Dean, or sort of, anyway, I was given this job from Interview Magazine I was working with quite a bit. And why I even brought this up here is it's just kind of like the last photo you saw with my first job as the fashion photographer in Europe. This is kind of my first job as a celebrity photographer. And he's one of my first subjects, and amongst quite a few others. But I really wanted to put him up here because he's no longer with us, unfortunately, and he died at a very young age. And he was such a good guy. I remember going to his home. I don't even remember where it was, to go photograph him. And he literally was just about 16 and a half years old. And he finished Stand By Me, which was a really famous movie at the time. And he was doing, I think, Jimmy Reardon, I can't remember the movie was called. And he said, listen, I got this Bronco, let's get in the car, let's get in the truck and we'll drive up into this woodsy area. I said, fine. And that's what we did. We went up there and I did his portrait on the left, and that was published in Interview magazine as a full page ad. And on the right side, I think there might have been insert, but I'm not quite sure, or this was just my personal photography for myself. The hat he's holding is my dad's hat from 1945. I brought that as a, just like a little prop, and he loved it. He wanted to keep it. I just couldn't give it to him. And I love his pose here, how he was holding it, and just this innocence of who he was. And it's one of my favorite photos. This is a collage. I thought I'd just put a collage together because I have, I don't know, thousands of tear sheets. I don't even know how to even, I literally threw this on the floor and kind of pushed it around with my hand, and I did a double by exposure with them, and some are not. So it's a collage of my work, my covers, my beauty campaigns, my bride campaigns, my advertising, the list goes on, I guess, if you will, in the world of fashion and celebrity. And this is an accumulation of probably a good 10 to 15 years right here. And like I said, there's just so much more. First of all, anybody with questions? We can go over there. Can people hear me?
No, we can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Where do you
questions?
list the questions? Do you write questions?
No, you just ask. You can ask.
Okay. 2 questions from me then.
Yeah.
One, what was your approach to film stock selection for jobs? And secondly, what was your approach to working with celebrity talent like River and Oliver Stone and etc.?
The film stock, I think at that time, it seemed like it just seemed what was popular, which was interesting. And Tri-X being a very popular film at that time, stock. So I really kind of just would go with Tri-X. I pretty much just used Tri-X. I never really got into the 120. I knew I had a lot more latitude with Tri-X than I would with a slower film. And I know I could push or pull on it and hold it and not lose too much of what I needed. You know, it's just so much different now with digital and, you know, coming into the digital age, which is like, you know, everything comes out. You can trip and something will just come out and you'll be fine, it seems like. In those days, you had to be a little bit more careful. You're using a light meter. You're using a Polaroid. And Polaroid's not even that accurate, you know. The Polaroid's more just for lighting. It's just where the light's gonna fall. And then you go into your light meter, and then you go into your exposures. And, you know, and then you can do your +2 or -1 and all that kind of run to the lab thing. But I knew Tri-X for me, in black and white, sorry, was where I want to go. And in color, I think I used a lot of 100, not quite sure at the time, there's a lot of 100 Ektachrome, tend to go a little blue, and then there was Kodachrome as well, but I didn't use Kodachrome, sorry about that. It's really weird to talk to a screen, I'm just telling you. And the other question was the approach to the celebrities. Being a fashion photographer first for many years kind of brought me into the celebrity market, if you will. And I think that's just the norm for photographers, unless you are a celebrity photographer in the beginning. And there's many of those that had started off just doing celebrity. I kind of went fashion to celebrity. And so when I got to New York City after being in Europe and Italy, I was shooting celebrity. And I really can't remember, but Interview being probably one of my first, Interview magazine, which is a very big, huge publication by Andy Warhol. He was the owner of it. And it was a huge magazine. It was like, I don't even get, you know, just a really big size magazine. I was given the opportunity to shoot for him for a couple of years, and I think I'm not sure if it was Oliver Stone or maybe River or there was a shoe designer, and I forgot his name, but anyway, I think let's just say Oliver Stone had, you know, was given Oliver Stone to photograph. And at the time I was living in New York City and Oliver Stone was living in LA. It's a good story, actually. And I knew of Oliver Stone, of course. He was a huge director and still is. I mean, I'm not sure what's going on now with him. But at the time I photographed him for Platoon, the movie that won quite a few awards. And I had flown to LA to do the shoot. I brought my team with me from my LA team at the time when I was there, and I brought a makeup artist, a hair person, assistant, and whatever else you can put into a van to take a picture. That I didn't need all that, and I always say that. We get to the house and they all sit in the van. I walk up to the house, I knock on the door, and his wife answers the door, and she doesn't even introduce herself as his wife, but it was his wife. And she says, Oliver's in the back in his office. You can go see him there. So I go back there, and I didn't even have a camera. I just wanted to go back, meet him, get a little comfortable, and then go back to the van and get the crew before we stampede on his house here in his privacy. And when I got back there, he was on the phone, and he sort of pointed out, he pushed me to he pointed to the seat to sit down, and I sat down, and he stayed on the phone for about 15 minutes, and I just sat there for 15 minutes. And I was thinking, like, wow, okay, I got to be cool, and I'm young. I'm just a young kid doing this kind of stuff, you know. So my emotions are sort of revving up, if you will. And then he finally gets off the phone. And he goes, "So you want to take a picture of me?" I go, "Well, yeah, I'm here for Interview Magazine. My name's Marco Franchina." He goes, "You know what? I don't know if I really want a picture. How are you going to take it? What are you going to do?" I go, I don't know. We'll walk around, maybe go in the backyard, take a couple portraits there. He says, "How about me on the phone right here?" I'm like, to myself, like, no, I think it'd be better without a phone on your hand, in your face here. And he says, "Okay, how about just me right like this?" So I thought, this is crazy. He says, "I just want a couple pictures." And I got a team of people in the car that, you know, like the hair and make. He goes, "I don't want hair and make. I don't want anybody in my house." I said, "Okay, can you give me a minute?" I go back out there. I tell everybody, no one can come in. I go back into the house. I was photographing 6x7, Pentax 6x7 at that time. It's just a huge ass camera. And you know, a lot of people know this camera. And it feeds 120 and 220 roll film. And I get back there, I have my 6.7 with me. I'm not sure what lens it was. And I sit down, I'm thinking to myself, he goes, "You know what, let's make this quick." And he was really just like this. And I said, all right. The only light in that room was a lamp, as you see it right there. You can see that light is just one light. And I said, "Why don't you just put your elbow down, put your hand up on your chin, and let me take this picture right here." 2 frames. That was it. 2 shots. He goes, "We're done." So that was that. I'm going to try and make this a little quicker. I'm like, "Thank you, goodbye." No one said goodbye, really. I just kind of walked out, get in the van, flying back to New York. Here I am sitting out with Andy Warhol, a crew of everybody in New York, in Interview Magazine, with 2 pictures of Oliver Stone. It was like, I was like, this is all he gave me. And I was sweating, you know, I'm just this like brand new, you know, what happened? Oh, and I told him, and and Oliver Stone, and it's the first time I met Andy Warhol, and Andy Warhol actually liked the photo, and I was just unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. There was only 2 frames. I am not even kidding, and I have that to this day, the proof somewhere. I have to find it. So that was one way of shooting a celebrity, if that answers your question or what you go through. Anyone else? Okay. I'm going to move on. So this series, Curbside, I'll read it to you. It's one of the series that I'll be showing you. Curbside came to me a little over 3 years ago, but photographing through a car window for me is nothing new. I just took it a step further. Most of these photos were taken in Hollywood. Hollywood is actually the center of cinema tourism, with our beautiful weather and the lure of Hollywood stardom. Many of these photos were taken on Hollywood Boulevard and Sunset Boulevard, 2 major streets that have a lot of history. None of these photos were set up. Some have stories and some do not. I'm trying to capture the reaction of random people and a day in the life of typical or non-typical Angelenos. These people are from all walks of life, ranging from normal, whatever that is, to the outrageous, offbeat, and extreme. Sometimes it's just right in front of me, or I set it up, oh, I see it up ahead. It's very similar to how I shoot my street photography when I'm on foot. Being in a car becomes even more voyeuristic than being on the street, which at times becomes a bit more challenging because people don't like objects pointing at them from inside a car. It's no secret that Los Angeles has the highest number of drive-by shootings in the world. So this series, I'm going to present to you. Some of you might have seen it before. It's only been on Instagram. I occasionally will put it on to Facebook only if I'm introducing something for Instagram. It is exactly what I just read. It's nothing new. People have done it. I've just been more consistent with it. And everything shot with an iPhone. I was doing a little bit of night photography with it, and the iPhone just wasn't registering the well enough to capture any sort of quality. So I brought my 35 with me and shot that. In fact, it was my Leica Q at the time. And there might be a couple in there here, and you'll see the difference in quality. And so the whole thing was shot with my iPhone, and you can see the different generations of iPhone quality, which is pretty funny within the 3 years, because I had three already new ones by that time. And we'll go from there. So this photo here is, this mural is very popular. I mean, I'm sure it's been photographed a million times. And this was shot actually with my Leica Q. And a lot of people would say, my God, it looks like it's been photoshopped in. No, this is not photoshopped in. In fact, nothing has been. This is a mural, and I'm not sure where. I don't know where my locations are. I'm kind of like that, unfortunately. A lot of people love to like label to where they're at. I sort of just get lost and I just start shooting. I don't really like to put where it is. Sometimes I do. But if I ever put a book together, I probably wouldn't be putting any locations on there. I just feel I like the viewer to sort of have their own interpretation of what, where it is, or their own little story. So I drove by this. I've never seen it before. I was on a way to a job, actually. And there's not only this one, there's a couple of them and it's an underpass. And this one was definitely striking to me. And I've been doing the series for a little bit at the time. And I really feel that I'd like to use this for my book once I put that together as the cover. It really just stands out to me. It just really depicts exactly what this series is all about. And it's obviously right in your face. So this one, I've paired the series up to make it a little bit quicker. This one here this is a woman to the left. First of all, I call her 99 cents. I was down the street and I saw her from afar, and she was waiting for a bus at the bus stop. And I knew I had to get her on film. And I drove up, parked, this is the one to the left, the photo to the left. I parked right in front of her, a little beyond the bus stop. And she looked at me and I looked at her and I had my camera and I just started shooting. I think I shot like 15 shots real quick with my iPhone there. And what I wanted was, I edit, everything I do is I edit. And her hand was down. It wasn't holding the basket. It was just down. And the framing was wrong for me with that. I didn't see any kind of movement, even being a still photograph. I see movement. I need to see movement. And movement to me is framing, is composition, is lighting, is everything that creates movement in a still. This one in particular, her arm went up to holding the basket, and that made the shot for me. And it was like probably the last shot, actually. When I left, I pulled over and looked at him. I was just so happy to get this. And I said to myself, I will never, ever see this lady again. I don't know why I said that. I just felt that. 2 weeks later, to the right of this photo is now her again. Once again, I saw her from a distance, and this time I said to myself, she's not going to stop. I have to pull up a couple, like a block or so, and pull over. I brought in the meter into the photo on purpose. I wanted to have once again this sort of some sort of dimension, if you will, a perspective to make the photo work instead of just being her walking along. Once again, here she is with an umbrella open and now her basket is full. And in the car, how I get people's attention is I would like yell, or I would, hey, or I would, what's going on? Or just something like, you know, almost something that you can't make sense of. And I did that, and there she was, and she looked right at me, and I knew I got the shot right when I saw it. You know, being a photographer, and I can speak for most, and you're doing street photography, you know, kind of get that one shot, or if you're lucky, you can get a couple shots, but mostly the one shot. And if you can say you got the shot, at least for yourself, that's pretty cool. And because it's yours, it's your own shot. I'm not here to present my work and have people, you know, say it's great or whatever. It's more of how I feel about it. Mike, how am I doing on time? I don't know where I'm at right now.
I think you have another half hour or so, so we're fine.
Okay. Well, we haven't got into ambient nights yet.
Okay.
I mean, after hours. Oh, Lord. We might have to extend it a little bit. So here we are. The fight with the baskets here. So one being here is in Fairfax in LA with the woman and her baby in the basket. And I just found that just classic. You don't see that too often. That kind of just happened. I was just parked there. I don't know what I was doing. I was eating lunch or something, and she just went by, and I was lucky enough to grab that. I just really liked that photo. And then the man to the right, I was once again parked, and I saw him coming down, and I wanted to get him in the frame, and I wanted his reaction. I wanted him to look at me right when it comes into where the window starts. And exactly that happened. I called out again. I said, hey, what's going on? And he looked, and I grabbed the photo. This also, my car at the time was an Audi. So you might see a change of cars. I now have a Prius hybrid, Toyota Prius. So this is the Audi. Now, why I'm bringing this up, because it's a nice car. It was a really, really nice car, an expensive car. And I'm going into crazy places with this car and not even thinking. And here I am sticking my iPhone out the window or whatever and trying to capture these images. When I got rid of this car and I got into the Toyota hybrid Prius, I became so much more relaxed. I just put it that way. I got into deeper places that you should be going to. I didn't really care as much. But with a car like this, it just didn't keep me so comfortable anyway. So bus stops, here we are. Here's a woman to the left. She has pretty much her life. I'm not an advocate or anything like that. I don't like to really show homeless. It's not my thing, especially homeless on the ground or anything like that. Obviously she's homeless, but calls for a great photo. She's not, she probably could be a happy homeless person. I'm not quite sure, but I really liked what I liked about this. Not only was the color of what was going on here. You got the color of the gas station being red and yellow. Then you got exactly the same color as the suitcase and the Forever 21. And then the Forever 21 sort of saying, kind of giving her a feeling of she's always going to be 21, And I think we can, at least for myself, that was my story with her in this. The one to the right was very interesting. She was, I pulled up to her because I liked the backlight of what was going on and her taking drags of her cigarette. I didn't want her to look at me though, and I was waiting for her to turn to the side, and she did, and she took another drag and puffed it out, and smoke hit the backlight, which was great. But what was for me was a lot better was spot a stroke fast, and here she is smoking a cigarette. I mean, that just to me is pretty funny. Okay, once again, I'm in my Audi. The guy to the left is in his lowrider, and he was not happy me taking a picture of him. But I knew I had to take a picture of him. I had to. And so I said to myself, I'm going to take the picture and I'm going to figure out I'll just find out what's going to happen after. I mean, it was kind of like that. I just kind of threw it up in the air and see what would happen. So I raised my camera. I took the picture. He looked at me and I immediately said after, I go, do you know where so-and-so street? I know downtown. This is downtown. I know downtown pretty well. So he gave me that look, and then all of a sudden became this little teddy bear. Sure, it's right 4 blocks this way and 1 block that way, and I knew exactly where the street was. And I think he just thought I was, taking his picture, which I mean, maybe he didn't think that. Excuse me, but I knew I was, and I got away with this look. I paired this up with the one to the right, Here's a bunch of guys getting arrested for, I'm pretty sure it was a drug deal, once again, downtown LA. These are one of my favorites. The guy to the left holding the sign, spinning it around, like he was really good actually. He was nice. I had asked him just to start spinning. I couldn't get the right shot, at least for me, but this one was great. He looked at me and I think he said, how was that? And I shot it, and I just thought that was the perfect edit for me. Now, the guy to the right, I really had no control of him whatsoever. He was out of control. He was yelling and screaming. He was being a chicken. He was rah, rah, doing all kind of crazy thing. And I just said, all right, go for it, man. And I just started shooting away, and I managed to get this one look. I've got quite a few, but this one in particular I think is extremely funny to me. And he was into it. He knew I was taking this picture. Let's just stop for a second. Any questions? Any questions? All right. So we'll call it Welcome to Hollywood now. Now here we are, sort of going into Hollywood Boulevard. To the left is the tour bus. We have millions of them here in Los Angeles. And this one happens to be on Mulholland Drive. They were pulled over and they were taking pictures, I guess, of the skyline. And I pulled over real quick and managed to get 2 shots, and this being the second shot, having everyone look at me, the woman here in yellow waving. And I love the guy with the iPhone, with the woman's iPhone, obviously, because I would think it's hers. And he's, oops, sorry. And he's looking at me. I love his look. And then we got to the right, we got Mickey Mouse doing her thing, or whoever's in that. And I really like that shot too. I think it's just pretty funny, comical. So this is Hollywood Boulevard, and here we are. So here's our characters. We got Spider-Man to the left, Catwoman to the right. Now these guys, when years and years ago, when this all started, there's actually a really cool documentary on this, that they go out there and they, you know, they act like the characters being Spider-Man or Catwoman or whoever, and they get photos with the tourists, and that's how they make their money. So if you look at the one on the left, you got another Spider-Man right to his left, which is pretty funny. But years and years and years ago, it was pretty much just not a lot of, there wasn't 5 Spider-Mans, let's just put it that way. It might have been 1. If now there's like 5 to 10. So you can kind of get them on every block, and as well as Catwoman here, you know. And so the left one, Spider-Man here, I needed a reaction with him, and I was waiting for something. And the best I can get is him shading his eyes, looking at the camera, and I just thought that was kind of a funny shot. And then to the right, which I really like, is the photo of the Catwoman, totally done with her job today. She probably wasn't doing well. Her catsuit is just totally ruffled up and not really all there, and she just did not like me taking a picture, but I kind of like the expressions of all the other people there. It gives it a nice composition as well. So here we have Zorro to the left, and I just caught him coming off a frame. He was walking by. I grabbed a couple shots, but they weren't what I wanted. But I love the one here of him just walking off. His body worked for me in terms of his, you know, the way his positioning and the cape kind of flying. And then we have, I think I was telling Mark, am I right about this guy here? Sorry, I got an itchy nose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, obviously he got Spider-Man holding Captain America's shield.
Yeah, so exactly. So exactly. So it's all over, you know, whatever works. Someone from Europe probably just doesn't know. Who knows? It doesn't really matter. So he's defending somebody. To the left here, here's a guy playing his trumpet. He was playing it when I first pulled up to see him, and he continued playing when I was taking his picture. He couldn't care less about me taking his picture. So I just kept photographing him until I could find something. So I got some kind of an itch going here. To the right is a couple sitting on the bench. These guys are pretty well known, oddly enough. They're sort of, funny enough, Mark, you probably have seen them, because this is on Ventura Boulevard somewhere. If I remember, our Studio City.
Let me see.
Yeah, they're just kind of a couple. They're always hanging out, doing their thing. And I was taking a picture of them. The husband, if you want to call him the husband, saw me taking a picture, and he went to go kiss her, which I thought was very sweet. And she looked up and she was fine with it. I think the next shot was a smile, but I liked this one a lot, actually. Once again, to the left here, I really liked her, this lady. She's just all character to me. I loved her hat. I loved what she was wearing. She was carrying 1,000 bags. Kind of reminded me of my mother. She would carry all these bags all the time from work. And here's the lady looking at me. I didn't have to say anything to her. She looked right into the camera, and that was the shot. I really liked that. And I love the composition of that too. And then to the right, which I thought was pretty funny, I followed this guy. He had a bag of Doritos in his hand. I followed him for about a block. I'm thinking I need to get a shot of him. And I couldn't get the proper shot for some reason. And I was saying, I hope to God he sits down. And he sat down. And I pulled up in front of him, and he was opening up his Dorito bag. And I was just shooting as fast as I can with my iPhone on this one till I found the right shot. And I actually talked to him. He was a really nice guy. He was just hanging out and doing his thing. And he dresses like that every day. I asked him if he dresses like that every day. He goes, yeah, I like just dressing up and looking good. And he does. So here we are back on Hollywood Boulevard. So you got all kinds of walks of life, supporting whatever they want to support for, their religion. I like this framing to the left with the three women calling out this lady in the middle, and the other two sort of framing it up quite nicely. And then to the right, we've got the I am pro-life, pray to the end of abortion. This was a great lineup, if you want to call it that. They didn't like me taking their picture at all. And I was a little uncomfortable about it, but I really liked it though. It was a good picture for me. I'm gonna try to hurry up here. Just people on the street doing their thing, walking by. I kind of like the one on the left, sort of right, a little bit close to camera, had a nice feeling to it. To the right, if I can kind of say about this, talk about this, this is a quick little story. This guy did not like me taking a picture. I was down in LA. In fact, what had happened was I photographed this guy and the other guy. It looked like they would be together. They weren't. He walked off a little bit, and then I was parked, and he came back and he goes, "Did you take a picture of me?" And I said, "I did." He goes, "I don't want my picture taken." I go, "All right, I'll delete it." He goes, "No, I'll delete it." And he approached the car to get in the car. My window was open to grab my phone, and I had to push him out of the car. And I pushed him out of the car, and I got out of the car, and I went up to him. I said, "Listen, I'll delete it in front of you." And I did, but I didn't delete this one, which thank God, because I really love this one for some reason. So I just, got away with this one shot. It's kind of crazy to be doing this kind of stuff, but you know what? A little bit of a thrill. This one here, I love murals. Murals it plays a great part of this series. I've grouped these together. Here we are. Here's this man serenading this beautiful woman, and then you got the other woman being very jealous, looking at this man, or her man probably serenading another woman. So I thought it was a good grouping. And I love the colors on this. And another thing is all this projected stuff right now. They're low res. We're dealing with maybe 72 by 1600, or 1000 by 1000. So you're not getting the quality of what it is. In fact, with the iPhone, and a lot of this iPhone stuff, I have an app, which is a raw app. I can grab and go into 300 DPI, which is really nice. To the left, I like how I was waiting for this woman to get lost right into the tree here. I find it also really interesting being very monochromatic. I mean, we're dealing with probably two colors here. And I was waiting for her to just get right in there. In fact, I have her coming up, but it didn't look right. And then the man here as well, I'd called to him right when he's walking by the pole, I called him right when his head was coming out, and I grabbed that. So here's a guy with a piano, blankets, and a backpack. And then, of course, we got the lazy security guy not doing nothing about it. So I just thought that'd be a funny kind of pair up. And this is the end of the series. Now, this guy is fantastic. Love the earth, die. I mean, what other way can you just, end this series? And this will definitely be the last page of my book. I have about over 1,000 photos of this. And these are just a little, and I honestly, I don't even know where to go with it. There's so many other great ones. And at one point, I'll put it together. Any questions?
No, those are really good. I like those.
Anybody else?
How long do you go out and drive? I mean, do you go like for 2-3 hours or short trips, or how does it work?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's basically, I'm either out there, I'm on my own work, I'm doing my own job, and I'm out there and I see something, or I will go out and I'll look. And there's specific places I know that I can probably grab some photos. I talked about Hollywood being one of them, and downtown, and there's a lot more characters for me to find, or different situations. But I would go out 1 or 2 hours. It's a lot of driving. It's a lot of stop and go. It's dangerous as well. Kind of going through a red light or pulling over real fast. It's just not the safest thing to be doing, to be honest with you. Although I never got a ticket. I don't think I did. And I had a Coke or a root beer thrown at me at the window, which was really nice. That was the most. And that guy who came in tried to grab my phone. Our next series is called
Marco.
Yeah.
Do you have any misgivings about doing that type of photography ever?
Not really. It's sort of, I think being a photographer and you do what you love to do, everything just sort of works, it's for me, this is what I do. I had said to a friend of mine the other day, I was just almost, I don't know if I was joking. I said, am I ever going to retire? And she says, you're a photographer. Photographers don't retire. And I think in anybody who loves what they do, you just don't retire. The physical part of it might stop you. But in terms of taking pictures, we know photographers that go till the last day they're on this earth. And what I find also is I don't like to just shoot one thing. I like to shoot everything. And I find the beauty in doing that as much as I can. And I said earlier too, I'm not trying to expose my work to have people pat me on the back or anything, or I'd be in the wrong business. Although, we got to do our commercial work to make money. And I completely separate that, obviously. And it's hard because I tend to be much more a fine art photographer than a commercial photographer, although I've shot so much commercial photography in my life. It's just not my choice. But every photographer probably has to do commercial photography to survive or to make a living. If not, they're not going to be making a living. So this work after hours is my night stuff. And I'll read it to you. My current work called After Hours explores my fascination with shape and form. I've been working on this for many years. These are really dark and moody images of deserted places and spaces that fascinate me. Night photography is not new to me. I've done it since I picked up a camera, but I never took it seriously. Interestingly, I've always been afraid of the dark since I was a kid, but there's something about nighttime that is so peaceful when no one is around. It's very meditative. At an early age, I was always interested in noir films, a category of cinema with a dark, unease vibe. The films with Bogart, Lauren Bacall, Ava Gardner, Robert Mitchum. One of my favorite films, although photographed in 1967, was Truman Capote's In Cold Blood. Another influence are in cinematographers, particularly Vittorio Storaro and his classic film, The Conformist, where he used his lighting color to set different moods. In this film, I feel like every single frame could be a still shot. The painter Edward Hopper was also an influence on me, notably his painting entitled Nighthawks, painted in 1942, set in a late night cafe, and also Gas 1940. In fact, my best friend and I, growing up at the early age of 13, made a short film called The Henchman, a mafia noir, all in 8mm. And if I can remember right, one of the roles came back underexposed. And my friend here is here with me, Mark. And he's also in the business as a visual effects supervisor and one of the best. So it's funny that we're both in the field like that. And we loved growing up and dealing with all kinds of film and doing all kinds of stuff visually, if you will. These after-hour shots are all have the feeling of extreme solitude. They showcase my concern with documenting architectural elements, whether the loneliness of a landscape or the sharp angles of a building or the sensuous curve of an automobile. I take influences from many sources, but I make them my own. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I'm itching. It could be nerves. What do I know? So we'll continue. So I would say the best way to see this is probably to turn off your lights in your house or wherever you are to see this, because it's pretty dark. My images here. Now this is one of my first images of the series for After Hours. It's a grouping of old cars. It's in a small town called Piru in a what do you call it? I'm sorry, a garage area. It was at nighttime. I darkened the background. I cleaned it up a little bit. I didn't show it. In the back was a fence, and it was going dark. It was getting to being dark time. I just didn't want it. It just would ruin the whole shot. So I cleaned it up. So I do Photoshop a bit of my work. I don't take the elements away from it. I will darken or lighten or clean up a little bit here and there, a little bit of saturation if I need. But I'm not the one to really change my work at all. This one too, I've sold quite a bit. A lot of people have found this a lot, very interesting photo for them. So this is a donut shop in Burbank. It's really well known. And I came back here, I don't know, it wasn't like I couldn't get the shot. I knew my framing. I knew I wanted to get the lights in it. I couldn't get, people were just there all the time. And I'm like, how do I get this one guy here? This place doesn't close. I think it's 24 hours if I remember right. So this is a long time ago. And I just, one more time, went out there. And this time I went there at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, there's just, I mean, then again, everyone eats donuts at 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what I was thinking, but I went out there and I was just lucky. I just could not believe. So I put myself smack in the middle of the street. I couldn't care less if I was gonna get run over. But I needed this framing with the lights, the street lights, and then him there. And I think I shot about 10 shots with this. And I was really happy with it. It's very gritty. This is a photo I took in Arizona in a hotel. Interesting enough with this is that the room that I got, I got one room that I was given, and I went up there and the sheets weren't made. I'm thinking, what the heck? So I called them. I said, hey, the whole room's not even ready. They said, okay, go to room whatever, 201, whatever it was. And I went to this room. Oh, all right. I wake up the next morning and I look out the window and there it is. I see this horizon of the sunrise. And I thought I'd bring in the lamp as well into it and give it a little bit of color and some sort of another element, another piece of something to give it more depth. This was shot with my Leica Q. And like, once again, the quality on showing this here is not great. I am not sure where I shot this. I'm almost thinking outside of Yucca Valley. I did a lot of traveling to Yucca Valley. It's an old gas station, abandoned. And what attracted to me first was the light on top of the awning there. But then, of course, when you look down, you get the reflection off the water, which sort of makes it unbalanced, which is really funny if you look at it that. My compositions are very strong. I'm not one for tilting or doing all kinds of, I like them straight and you know, just to keep a nice, strong composition. But when I saw that later on in the photo, when I blew it up bigger at home on my computer, I was like, whoa. It just has this offset to it, which is really interesting to me. This is a gas station out in the Salton Sea. I like to isolate light. So my exposures are to the light of what's happening. And a lot of other light, if minimal, will just fall to black, and I can go in there sometimes and take it out. But most of my photos that I try to photograph at night, especially, I like to find ones that have more of an isolated light, nothing that's sort of all over the place. I like how it, and I can just expose to that and keeping it to what you see here. This is one of my favorites. I look at things too, like, you know, with the hopperish kind of feel, you know, I feel that I like taking a picture, having having that paint quality to it that maybe someone can paint it. You know?
Is this with the Leica, that one at the gas station?
Yes, this is with the Leica Q. Yes.
Did you spot meter off the lights under the awning, or just average, or what'd you do? Do you remember?
Everything I do, I bracket. So I'm into a 3-stop bracket usually. I mean, it's a little obvious for digital now with everybody. You know, you can look in your camera, you kind of know where what you're looking at and how you're going to adjust for. I've been doing this for so long. I even, you know, I worked as an electric, and I just know lighting really well. I kind of understand the balance of light and how it exposes. You know, I know the hot spots that won't work. So when I see light, every light should really balance almost equal in terms of its illumination, if you will, or very close to it. So we're not blowing out pieces of different elements in the photo. I do bracket. I like to go under a little bit so I can work with it in Photoshop. And sometimes I go in HDR, but that's rare, especially on fine art. I think that's just, to me, I do that actually for my work. But I tried it a couple times and I said, I'll never do that again. This is up in Idlewild. This is about 12 o'clock at night. I took off, left my hotel, and I started, it was a really obviously very foggy night, which is one of my favorites. And I love the framing. I saw this and I shot this wide open, as wide as you can get. I think I was at 2 on this one. Very soft. I actually pulled my car over and I went in the middle of the street and shot it. This is handheld as well, but made for a great photo, for me at least. And oddly enough, the color of the sky was very similar to that. I think I brought it up just a little bit. I enhanced it just a bit. Downtown LA, I got a thing with cars coming at me. I don't know why. If I ever die and a car hits me, that's probably why. Who knows? This one was good. This is on a cul-de-sac in downtown LA around, again, around 11, 12 o'clock at night. It's when the only time you can go and find no one around. And it was a little scary because I was at the end of the cul-de-sac turning around and I didn't see anything on the way in. But when I turned around, I'm like, okay, I see everything now. I see all the shapes, all the lines, everything that's working for me. And then I see this car coming at 11 o'clock, coming to a cul-de-sac, and I'm alone. So I was like, all right, bring it on. What am I going to do? I just couldn't, but I thought I'd just take advantage of it and use him or
Did
whoever.
you shoot that through the window?
No, this is, I'm outside my car shooting this. And
Is it handheld?
yes,
How
most of my work is handheld. Very little is on tripod. I shoot a lot wide open and I'm around 200 to 400 ISO. What was the last question?
No, I was going to say what ISO, but it's you were able to get the lights to come out. Was it much darker and you brought it up, or did it come out looking more like this?
You know, I like to shoot also. A great time to shoot is full moon. Full moon brings in tons of ambient light into the picture. So in terms of, I don't know what you're asking, but in the sky was exactly what that was. It was very bright. I might have brought it up a little bit. I'm not sure. Like, you know, like I said, I go into stops. I can go from 2 to 5, 6, I would say. I don't go into 8 or 16. I've done it. And there might be some photos here that show that quality. But when you're on a wide angle, not wide angle, I'm shooting a 28 here. The depth carries on, and it kind of can trick you in thinking that you might be shooting around 8 or 16. Be it a shorter lens, of course, it's obvious. Or a longer lens, sorry. Another one, like I said, I just love cars. Now this was just by accident. I was framing up for the shot. I just liked the lighting and how everything was falling, and the blue lights to the right, and the lighting that was hitting to the left of the building there. And then all of a sudden this truck with one lamp comes around. I'm like, really? All right, thank you, God. And there was the shot, boom. Once again, handheld, holding it. This is in Idlewild again. I was going out looking for photos. I love old cars, as you can tell. This photo, which was pretty interesting. I started from the other side of the car, and I liked the flag. I knew I was going to bring the flag into this somehow. But I saw it from the other side first, and I thought, okay, it looks nice with the car and the flag, but the flag was way too far away. And you know, as they say, the grass is greener on the other side. So I went to the other side in front of the flag here, and I'm like, all right, I'll shoot the car a little bit. And then I backed off, and here's the flag in front of me. I'm thinking, this is a lot better shot for me. And while I was shooting this, the guy who owned the car and the guy who owned the property was right to the right of me, sitting in his lounge chair with the door open. He goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm taking a picture of your beautiful car." And he goes, "Oh, thank you. Yeah, I haven't driven it for years." And obviously, because there's a flat tire on the front there, if you can see it. I go, "You don't mind, do you?" He goes, "No, go take the picture." So sometimes you just got to be sort of a little bit funny and fun and comical or what have you. And if they say, you know, hey, get lost, you leave and you be polite and leave. This is shot in Burbank. I was driving home from somewhere, and this is off a major street actually. And I saw it with my eye. Like I just kind of looked to the right, and there it was. I was like, I really thought when I saw this, I thought a movie was being filmed. Turn this off. I thought a movie was being filmed. It looked like a 5K being sprayed all over this house, or even maybe a 10K. So I drove up to it. I looked down. It was a one light, one street lamp, or one house light that, you know, those big lights that people put on their homes that illuminate like, not only their home but someone else's home when they're trying to sleep. That kind of light. And I went there and I looked straight down, and I'm like, I took the picture of in the alley shooting down. It wasn't as nice as when I backed off and I shot this as, you know, as more of an isolation up to what the light is in the home. In the real print, actually, I've given this print to a couple of people. I've sold it once. The garage to the left is dark. It's not showing as much it is here. I call this, within the series of After Hours, call it San Francisco to LA. I literally drove to San Francisco, from LA to San Francisco, and from San Francisco back to LA in one day. But my mistake is I took I'm not sure what the road is to San Francisco, the easier road. Is it the 5? Anybody?
They're both pretty good. 101's fine, and 5 is fine. Either one works well. They're a little different.
Well, you don't want to do the 101 on the way back, which I did, and it was a disaster. This is off the 101 coming back, trying to get home. And I thought I'd just make use of it. I was so tired. I almost slept there, to be honest with you. And I saw this, and I'm like, this is just absolutely beautiful. Once again, the quality's not great because we're on screen and all that, but and it just made for such a beautiful photo, and you don't know where you're at. It could be anywhere in America. And it really, I didn't care for the cars driving by. I'm not the one for car streaks. You know, I've done them. But I guess at one point, you know, I was waiting, trying to get a clean shot. I couldn't, it just wasn't happening. It was
Looks like the 99.
It could be. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like I said, I don't know where I am. I get lost pretty much.
Kind of runs parallel with the 5, except you run through a lot of farm country.
Oh, okay. You might be right then. It's a beautiful piece.
Yeah, it doesn't look like 101.
No, this is not the one. I'm off on a road too. I'm off on someone's private dirt road here.
Was that handheld?
No, this is on a tripod.
Yeah, that's why you got the streaks. You had a longer exposure.
Yeah, this is definitely a tripod. This is downtown LA. This is a funny little story real quick, if I can. I saw the car. I saw the backlights of all the windows and everything's lit up, and it was lit just like this. It was at nighttime. And I'm thinking to myself, but the problem with this shot is, because I wanted to shoot it like this, was there's like 6 other cars in the background. And that ain't gonna happen. So I've lost that shot. And I walked away and I went to dinner. I was with a friend at the time. And I'm praying that all those cars were gone, and not this car either. This old, I'm not even sure what it is, Delta. I get back, all the cars are gone, the Delta's still here, boom, got the shot. I like the shot. I sprayed some iPhone light on it in the front here, just to give it a little bit of dimension. Well, if you like ice cream, this is Frosty Freeze. Somewhere deep in the valley. I'm not sure where. Seems like one of the first ones, or just very old one. I'm not sure where I photographed that. I liked it. Once again, isolation, the light being extremely consistent here. I brought it up a little bit. It seems a little hot here, but I like it. I like sort of hot lights, if you will, in fluorescence. I don't like them to be normal. Underpass. This is the pandemic of the underpass. Hundreds of motorhomes. I mean, I literally could do a book of this. I was thinking I have so much of this. This one in particular I do like though. I came by, these are dangerous to shoot. the people in these motorhomes are out of control. I've had people yelling at me, running across the street at me, trying, taking pictures, and obviously they're homeless, or if you want to call that, maybe they're not. They got a bit of a home. But this I really like. I like how the light, that's one light was on top of it, falling down on it, and everything else is sort of softened out. There's a downtown, once a hotel, and now it's, I think, just boarding for low income. This is the lobby. I like, once again, how the colors and everything, it just reminds me of a nice opening to a movie. And I look at, like, when I photograph, I kind of look at things cinematically, if you will, something sort of that could sort of all of a sudden just become alive. I can almost see somebody walking up there and getting a room, guy with a hat, the old hat, and a woman, and walking up the stairs, and sort of, I feel that sometimes when I shoot, that it becomes live. I mean, I've done quite a few little short films, and DP'd and all that too. So this is in Las Vegas. Once again, extremely, all lighting, all consistent. Everything's nice. I like the framing here. There's a lady with her cart coming by. If you can see that, she's blurred. I'm handheld here as well. This is Idlewild, or close to it. That's a street lamp. I was working with the stop sign, the street lamp, and I needed cars to go by. And I had to wait quite a while to find the right car, the right light, if you will, to come by. And it had to come by from the left. And that finally came. I think it took like 20 minutes or a half hour before I finally got one. Motel up in the deep valley. What attracted me here was, was the orange light to the right there, off the window. And then while I was shooting this guy comes up and starts, checking in. I'm like, wow, this is great. But you never know, you're taking pictures and people just don't like that. So, excuse me. Another motel, and I think this is Vegas. It might not be, but it looks like Vegas. I think it was Vegas. I really like the tire sign behind it, peeking up there. So obviously nothing is in order here. I just kind of put it together. This is actually a really beautiful photo. The quality here doesn't give it justice at all. The foggy night. Now, fog tends to sit in different areas in the mountains. I've found out it can cover everything, but there's a lot of fog patching, if you will. And this being one of them. I was driving and I saw that. I'm like, what is going on here? I actually thought it was a fire. And it was just red lights off of cars going around the bend there, coming down the hill there with all this fog sitting in that area. So I got out of my car and I took the picture, waiting for another car to put its brakes on. This is Piru, little town called Piru. This is an old car just sitting in front of a I guess you would call this, anybody? What is this thing called? I don't know, a barn of some sort, container. This is Las Vegas. Motel in Las Vegas. I like the shape of it. It's lined right up once again, isolating the light. This is PCH. I've been to this location many times during the day, and I know the formation of the mountain and the rocks here really well. It's towards the end of PCH coming into Oxnard. And I had said to myself, one day I'm going to come back and take a picture of this, in twilight. And I did. And I came back and I sat and I took numerous pictures until I could find which I thought was really nice. And this is the one that came out. And once again, the quality is not great here, but it makes for, I think, a beautiful composition picture. The whole thing just really works for me. And that is it. These are my social media accounts. You got Instagram, which is Curbside at right there, Marco_Franchina_photos. My website is my full name. And my Facebook personal at Marco Franchina, and you're all invited to that if you like. So I don't know how much time we have left, but I can go back if you like. If not, and one of you guys can pick something to talk about or anything.
On the PCH, I know a lot of people go out there and take a lot of pictures on that last picture you showed. Was that on a tripod or handheld, and how did you meter it? That kind of thing.
That was on a tripod, and I once again in digital you meter through your camera. It's not I don't need a you don't need a Polaroid, or you don't need I look at my camera, I see it, and I stop down or I stop up, and I'll see where I'm at, and then I'll use the 2-stop, 3-stop sort of way I shoot to do it. I do a test there, so I would shoot it, give it a couple stops here, a couple stops there, up and down, and then I'll find what I like. And once again, digital has a lot of latitude. We can bring, there's so much of what we can bring back to Photoshop or Lightroom or whatever you edit in, and adjust for it. And every photographer has their own way of shooting. Everyone. I'm pretty gritty in the way I shoot. I'm not orthodox by no means. I work with my eye first, and everything else comes second in terms of technical. Although I know technical pretty well. I've been doing it for so long. I've worked in studios. I've done so much of that. But in fine art, I just kind of go with what I see, and then I know what I need. I know my ISOs, I know my f-stops, and I know my speeds.
Are you shooting in RAW?
Everything's raw. Yeah. Everything is in RAW except, well, actually, like I was saying earlier with the iPhone, there's an app called Manual. It's a great app if you guys ever want to go and get an app. It's exactly that, called Manual, and it gives you the raw capability, and it's really amazing, actually.